So I feel really bad making this video. I'm not making a video titled I Quit Warcraft Rumble because I haven't quit. I still play the game occasionally. I just haven't really made much content on it because I don't really feel like there's much content for me to make. And I'll still keep playing the game. I enjoy playing it casually. Last week I made a video basically looking at the year of development in Warcraft Rumble and what's happened since launch to now. I recommend that you go and watch it. If you want a history of this game since launch, I recommend that you go and check it out because it has a lot of detail in there. But the one big takeaway is that I think everybody knows it did not have a blockbuster smash success on the mobile market. It had a really core, dedicated audience. It had a good launch, but it just didn't quite take off. There were lots of reasons for that. I think Blizzard relied on their brand power a little bit too much. They kept a lot of their marketing around BlizzCon, and candidly, like BlizzCon viewers, and they obviously have the Warcraft interest crossover, but most of them just aren't mobile gamers. So I just don't think Blizzard quite hit the mark in terms of the way that they initially tried to market it up on launch. And if you talk to like a lot of video game marketers, especially mobile game marketers, they will tell you if you're not successful in the first 3 months, you're never going to be successful. Now, that's a bit of a, simplifying it just a little bit, but it has some weight to it. If you have a look at most mobile games launch patterns in terms of Google search trends, peak, down, and then it stays down forever. Or peak, up, stays up, and continues to go up. Usually, you can define whether a game is going to do well pretty soon after its launch. This is why Supercell is so notorious for launching a game and then killing it. Because if they launch a game and it just doesn't have the success, they won't drag it out. They tend to be quite cutthroat in that. Now, you may have seen a lot of content creators creating videos saying, I quit. Arclight Rumble did it ages ago. Bulava today. I'll show you. I quit Rumble. Basically, the TLDR is that he said that he'd kind of been faking enjoying the game for a long time. Basically said he doesn't recommend that anyone plays the game, which, I think is fair enough given that the game has been in a pretty poor state. But also, I would still personally recommend playing the game as a new player if you've never played it. It's got a really fun PvE campaign. You don't need to spend any money to enjoy it. And there's a lot of good, fun puzzle solving there, which hopefully isn't affected by bugs. But for veteran players who are interested in PvP and are really engaged, there's a lot of frustrating things in the game. But I would, someone that just wants to experience the game, first time playthrough, probably won't play it for a very long time. I would 100% recommend that you try Warcraft Rumble. I think it is a good PvE game. I would imagine that Bulava is just speaking from an area of frustration as well. The man put his soul into this game. He was one of the most dedicated content creators on the planet. And as I said in the last video that I made, sometimes the game just doesn't work out, and then you become more and more negative towards the game because you really want it to be successful so that you can be successful, and then it doesn't become successful, and therefore your channel doesn't get successful. I've seen it happen on my channel several times. Trust me, I've been through that process a lot. I'm now so jaded that I just don't care. But look, yesterday some news came out that Microsoft is laying off 650 more Xbox employees, which mostly actually meant Blizzard employees. Now, what happens with, and if you're not aware and you've been living under a rock, Microsoft acquired Blizzard in quite a big, relatively controversial deal. It was worth billions. There was a lot of antitrust, anti-competition lawsuits that popped up across the world, especially in Europe and the UK. And essentially, it went through. When a business merger and acquisition usually happens, the average workforce reduction tends to be around 30%. That's an average. Not always that way, but that's an average. So you're always expecting layoffs when a merger and acquisition happens. You just don't know when and maybe don't know where. And it takes time to work out the inefficiencies. It's the most corporate HR word ever. Inefficiencies. It takes time to work out where there is maybe some crossover in roles. You don't need as many people for that particular job. You make the existing employees do more, and you cut the people that you think you don't need. It's rubbish. It's crap. Trust me, it's crap. So, in this video, you can see that in January, or this article, January, this is Forbes, by the way, so, reputable journalist reporting area. 1,900 and Xbox and Activision Blizzard workers in January 2024. They had a massive round of layoffs, and now 650, which is an additional 3%. So you can work out from this, we've probably laid off 10% of the overall workforce this year. 10% of a company of the size of Microsoft, Blizzard, Activision. Huge amount of people that have been laid off, which is I hate it. I absolutely hate it. There are people that have just worked and put so much passion into these games, and they, especially on the American side of things, you don't get much notice. Like in the UK, if you're laid off, they have to usually respect your notice period, which tends to be on average about a month. So you usually get a month's notice before you go. Some people get 3. You get a bit of time. Now, that works in both ways. I'm not going to get into it, but when you want to move jobs, it means you can't just up and leave. You have to serve your notice period, but it also offers you protections. In America, no protections often. You don't have notice periods, and you can just be told on the day that you're not turning up to work anymore because you don't have a job, which happens to a lot of people, which I hate. I think it's an awful, awful way of doing it, because people could just be relying on a job for their income and their mortgage and their rent, and then they just don't have a job anymore. Hopefully they get some sort of severance package, though. I assume that's going to be the case. What Phil Spencer said in his statement is there are 650 roles across Microsoft Gaming, mostly corporate and supporting functions to organize our business for long-term success. Not just Microsoft Gaming. It was obviously, as we know, Blizzard Activision. And the reason we know this is because the top post on the Warcraft Rumble thread talking about this, there was a tweet from a journalist that basically said they are laying off people in the Warcraft Arclight team, and they consider the game in post-launch live ops, which I'll talk about in a moment. Dev came on and said, I just got disconnected from my work machine this morning. I was an environment artist for the team, and I was responsible for a lot of the maps that you'll play through. Basically, they also said that the president says the game is now considered a live service and no longer in development, and so there's now loads of important bug fixes and are shuttered and locked away in an unfinished state. And they made an edit about an hour afterwards that said, about half the team was gutted. If Microsoft is trying to spin that only non-developer roles were effective, then that is false. Engineers, producers, artists, and managers were affected. That is half the Rumble team. Sending an email to the Rumble team saying they consider it to be in a post-launch live ops phase. Now, before we get into that, I want to show you this person's art. This is the art of Monica Bauer. This is their art station. And they produced a lot of the art for the game, which you can see here. I want to give credit where credit's due. This person was fantastic. They contributed a huge amount to the game, and they should be respected for making the game so amazing to look at. Some of the levels so gorgeous to play through. Massive, massive respect for Monica. So I really hope she. I don't know if it's a she. Obviously, you can never make assumptions, but Monica sounds like a she name. So I hope that they land on their feet and they can find a new role. So, post-launch live ops. What does that mean? Well, I can tell you this. I used to create content for a game called Command and Conquer Rivals. That game, after about 6 months, got canned by EA. So we didn't even get the 9 months that Warcraft Rumble got. Because Warcraft Rumble, by the way, is not even a year old. Command and Conquer Rivals got canned off by EA. It went into post-launch live ops, which essentially involved exporting the entire live ops team to India and having an Indian, essentially, agency team look after the live ops of the game. And this Indian team did not do a huge amount of development of new content, and they mostly just did like day-to-day operations and sometimes did some balancing, maybe twice a year. And I think there might have been like 4 or 5 new units in 3 years. So small amount of content, small amount of balancing, mostly live ops and server focused. That, to me, is what post-launch live ops says. Now, when a game completes its development and it launches, often you'll have a lot of developers leave that team because their job is done. This happened with Wild Rift, for instance. When Wild Rift was completed, a lot of the devs left Wild Rift because you get a bonus for completing a game, and when it goes to launch, a lot of the development team that's needed for back-end development and building of the game are no longer needed, etc. But Rumble clearly still had a lot to do, so it still had a big development team and still needed a lot of work on it. Gutting half the development team is not a good thing. So there are people in this thread that are spinning post-launch live ops as potentially a good thing. This is normal. This is what we expect from a game that's at this stage. They're still going to get new content. Yeah, I'm pretty certain we'll get new content, but we're definitely not getting it at the speed that we were getting it before, and we're definitely not potentially getting all of it that we thought was coming. I mean, I can't say, but I know stuff was coming because I've talked to people that have that kind of information. I knew some cool stuff was coming for Season 9 and Season 10. Whether we get that now, who knows? So I don't think you can spin post-launch live ops as a good thing. It's not a good thing. It is in my opinion, Microsoft's way of saying you are not worth investing any money into from a development point of view because you don't make us enough money. So we are going to keep the game alive for the time being for everyone that's playing it. We'll hopefully milk out a bit of money over time. But yeah, we're not that interested in developing a whole load of new content for the game because we don't think it needs it. And that is Heroes of the Storm, basically. Heroes of the Storm has kept going, but has it really? It's like a lifeless husk of what it once was. And that's kind of what they're doing to Rumble, in my opinion. Now, I'm happy to create a video in 3 months' time where I say, hey, I was wrong. There's loads of new content. This is great. But I just don't see that happening. I don't think you can gut half the development team who are in the middle of working on things, as we can see from this post here, and say that you are going to get exactly the same service for the game that you got before. You won't. It just won't happen. Unless they're going to do a fire and rehire thing. Sometimes when it comes to like financial quarter updates or whatever, they sometimes do a fire and rehire so they can say that they've cut a load of, what's the word? Cut a load of costs from their P&L sheet and then they just rehire after they've published the P&L sheet. That sometimes happens. But yeah, like this to me seems like the end of Warcraft Rumble, at least for the way that we knew it. And obviously now touching on the content creators like Bulava, he's now quit. He's one of the most loved creators. He said, I'm in contact with the devs. Trust me, you'll all quit very soon. So he seems to think he knows something from behind the scenes, whether that's just a case of like, hey, the devs have now left the team and we're not going to get any new content. Whether that's we're going to start seeing some more predatory monetization to try and milk the player base or whatever we can. I don't know, but Bulava going is a big deal. Obviously, as you know, like Arclight Battery, he went a month ago. I think the only person still going, I think, regularly is Old Guardian. And actually, I'm kind of interested in seeing what Old Guardian says about this. We'll look at that in a minute.
Hello, everyone. It's Old.
The TLDR of Bulava was basically like he hasn't really enjoyed the game anyway, and like he can't keep forcing himself to play it. And I think that's very fair. Gosh, is it just Old Guardian that's creating content now consistently? Obviously, Spraggles is doing some stuff, but that's, I think, a sponsored thing. So, separately, as part of running the business, there's some impacts to other teams as they adapt to shifting priorities and manage the life cycle and performance of games. Okay, so that was part of a quote that I maybe just completely missed off. Did he say this? Separately, as part of running the business, there are some... Okay, fair enough. So they aren't totally spinning. They try to make the headline that it's supportive functions, but yeah, shifting priorities and managing the life cycles and performance of games. So basically, the performance of Warcraft Rumble is not great, and they are shifting the priorities to manage the life cycle of it. And you can see here, like he's pulled up a couple of tweets and a couple of Reddit posts. Pretty big deal. Like loads of more tweets here. There are only now 10 recruiters for Blizzard. Wow, so they've cut out recruiters for Blizzard as well. Post-launch live. So this is where I personally think that Old Guardian's huffing a bit of copium. Post-launch live loss is a perfectly normal state for a game to be in. Yes, agreed, but I think that it's a bit early to have shifted. Like Hearthstone had active development for a long time, still gets expansions like every 2-3 months, and it gets a lot of content. I think the Hearthstone team is probably bigger than the Warcraft Rumble team. Yeah, I mean, I think like ultimately the second half of this paragraph is correct. Already had difficulties delivering content and delivering it well. That will now be way harder with half the resources. Maybe they cut much more on the art side of things because they don't see themselves implementing any new big environments anytime soon. They're going to focus purely on bug fixes and behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, I think let's just listen to what Old Guardian has to say, actually.
So the next thing that we have coming is Season 9 in just a couple of weeks. And Season 9 content, of course, on Blizzard, and that should be quite ready by now. So for Season 9, we can see what kind of pacing they were thinking about for the future of the game. And then we can compare that once we get to Season 10 and see, okay, well, what are they going to be able to deliver for Season 10? Obviously, already Season 9 is somewhat worrying, like, okay, what can you actually deliver? You have now delivered most of the stuff that was talked about at BlizzCon, all the main PvE content, definitely. And
except for no replays. That's my biggest thing. Like, I wish we had private matches and replays, but I talked about that in the last video.
What do you have in store for Season 9? And now there's even further concerns for Season 10 now. So previously I was thinking, okay, if Season 9 looks good, then okay, maybe the game is going to look all right. But now, even if Season 9 looks good, then we don't know what Season 10 is going to look like. But yeah, tough day. Rumble obviously had not performed up to Blizzard's expectations. I mean, we all knew that. But I was hoping that they would give the team a little bit more time to try to turn things around, because getting new content out there at a proper pace would be one of the very, very important key features of making Rumble more attractive and getting new players. We'll see what the team is going to be able to do. A tough day for sure, even though this is actually not the end for Rumble now that I have.
No, and I think what he does say there is fair. This is not the end for Rumble, but I don't think Rumble's not going to become huge. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of content creators pack their bags, because no one wants to spend their time creating a video every day for a game that is super niche, especially if you have a full-time job and a family. And for me, that's why I couldn't keep it up. I got a full-time job. I've got family to look after. I can't spend all my days playing Rumble when there isn't that many. The net rewards for putting my time into it are just not that great. I think, we'll need to see. Not the end for Rumble, but also, candidly, not a great sign. That's the real takeaway here. Like, it's not the end for Rumble. Blizzard doesn't tend to kill games. They've never really taken games offline. But they also tend to just leave them out to dry. Like Heroes of the Storm, it's been left out for a long time. I don't think I would consider Hearthstone post-launch live ops personally. I don't think that's the correct way of looking at Hearthstone. I think Heroes of the Storm is post-launch live ops. Hearthstone's actually still in active development. They've had plenty of new game modes. They've had loads of expansions. I don't think Hearthstone is post-launch live ops. I think that's still in somewhat active development because they're still developing new things for it. Like I said, Heroes of the Storm is a good example of post-launch live ops. Warcraft 3 Reforged is post-launch live ops. Diablo 2 Remastered is post-launch live ops. These are the types of games where you're not expecting any new content at all, but the servers just keep running. That's what post-launch live ops means to an extent. I do think we'll get some new content. I think we'll get a reduced amount of content compared to what we were expecting, and it'll come fewer and far between. We'll have to see what the announcements are going to be from the Rumble team. We will get announcements soon. I know that for sure. So we keep our ears peeled. We'll cover the news when it comes out. And yeah, sad day. I'm not sad about myself or any of the Rumble creators. I'm just sad for the Blizzard team. That's all I can say. It's just rubbish. Really, really hard on people who've poured a lot of time and love into a game to find out just one morning you're not turning up to work. Well, that's shit. All right, guys. I'll see you soon.